Hello, so today we're going to talk about synthesis prompt sources, and the first video is on source information. So when you get your packet, or perhaps your electronic packet, depending on how this goes down, there will be little boxes at the top of each of the source pages, and those boxes have source information in them. Don't skip those boxes. It's very tempting to just skip them over, especially when you're under such a time crunch. But even the prompt tells you explicitly to read those boxes. Those boxes provide you information about where that source is coming from, where that information is coming from. It can tell you about the position or perspective that it's coming from. It can tell you about bias. It can tell you about credibility. And it can help guide your reading to make you maybe focus on one source more than another. So give me an example here. So this is one of the sources from the library prompt. So when I look at that, without looking at the actual article itself, I just want to take a second and think about, what do I think about source A? What do I think about the credibility? What do I think about the bias? What do I think about just initial thoughts that come to mind? So first, I think, okay, credibility mixed, right? It's an interview with a professional, so we do have some kind of respect for the experience involved in that, but it's a blog, and the date 2011. I mean, we're already in 2021. This was in 2017, this test question. And if we're talking about change, especially change with technology, 2011 is a million years ago, right? So then I think about bias. Well, I think this is going to be a pro-library bias for sure, because we're talking to a librarian and talking in a professional librarian organization. Also, American Democracy Project. For some reason, to me, that sounds like it would be an organization that would be pro-public funding of things. Initial thoughts, I think this is probably going to fit my thesis. It's probably going to be about the benefits of libraries. I think there's probably going to be something about community service. I am going to have to, though, beware of bias in this one. So then I move on to my next one. I got my little box. What do I think about this? Well, I don't really know Jenny Shank's expertise, so it's questionable at this point. Maybe it's in the article, maybe I don't know. But I do know PBS has a good reputation. They're often used in education, documentaries, things like that. So, but because of that, because PBS is so deep in education and public funding, it's public broadcasting, I think they're probably biased toward supporting libraries, saying that they do have a role. And they also say in the title it's a shift, but not a change. Or I'm sorry, a change, but not eliminated. So it seems like they're going to be for the position, yes, libraries still do have a role. So I think if it's my thesis, I think it's going to be about change in society and how that change in society equals a change to libraries. And I think there's also going to be a lot about education and literacy in here, because that typically is PBS's focus. I move on to my next one. Source D. I'm not doing all of the sources. This will be the last one we'll do, just as an example. So credibility, I think this one would be a very good piece for credibility. Pew Research, it has a really good reputation for research, for objective data, and it's also national data, which makes a big difference, right? If you're talking about one small community, that doesn't necessarily translate to a community, 500 miles away or 2,000 miles away. But if you're talking about nationwide data, then that becomes a little bit more persuasive, right? It's 2014, so it's more up to date than maybe some of the other ones. Bias, I don't think this is going to have much of a bias. I think it's going to be about objective data. It's tracking change, but not really commenting on it, not really either saying that it's good or bad change, just that it exists. And then my initial thoughts, I think that, again, that objective data can be very persuasive. So this might be one that I want to focus on for gaining information for my own essay, because I know that that is persuasive and I want to be persuasive. I also think that this is going to have something in it about change, about education, about community, which are some of those ideas that I want to argue in my essay. So the idea, again, is to not ignore those source boxes at the top. So now it is your turn So I want you to turn to your locavore prompt sources. Actually, there's a bit of an issue. Source A is separate from the other sources, so you're going to have to click on two links. Sorry, it is what it is. Copyright issues. But go ahead and just looking at the source data, not actually reading all of the articles or anything like that, but just looking at the source data at the top, jot down your initial thoughts about the credibility, bias, and how that source might relate to your ideas that you identified yesterday. All right, have fun.